For the tissue paper collage, you're going to take your canvas, your Ziploc bag, which has a variety of really fun tissue paper patterns. You're going to need your thick brush and your Mod Podge, which in your kits should be in a red or blue plastic container. I have mine here just in the lid. You'll also need your scissors and optional pencil. Here we go. Now this is an optional step, but I'm going to very lightly create a design on my canvas. Very lightly. Now you may choose to actually draw this design on paper just so you have an idea of what you will want your final project to look like. And the reason why I say this is optional is because with tissue paper, the fun is in creating the collage and seeing what happens. There really doesn't need to be an actual design. What I've done here is create sort of a flower shape with some petals and a center. But even that I'm doing very lightly because I may discover something while cutting my tissue that leads me in a different direction. Take my papers, and because I have an idea that I want to create a flower, I'm actually putting them all in a stack, and I'm going to cut out just like a petal looking shape. I didn't draw it, I'm just kind of creating a big long petal like this, and I'm not even trying to have the sides be exact. I'm just going to get a few petals like that, and I'm thinking maybe on top I'm going to make some petals that are a bit smaller. So same idea, I'm just going to cut out kind of like an oval shape from my tissue paper and see what happens. So I've got some like this, I've got some bigger papers, and I'm going to do a few more. Oh, I left this one out. I left this one out, so I guess we're going to do something else with that, and that's part of the fun. So I'll just continue to cut out more petals, and in cutting them out like this, I'm thinking maybe in addition to that big flower, I'll put some smaller flowers around my papers. You can see my paper's starting to get a little bit more challenging to cut, so I'm not going to don't throw out your scraps because you may find you want to use them for other things. Okay. I've cut out a square and of a few of my papers here, and I'm going to make some circles. I have an idea in mind that with my flower, I'll have that petal in the middle, and we'll see what happens. All right, now here's where the fun really begins. I've got my cut papers here, and I'm going to take my brush and put it in the Mod. Now, it's white, but it will dry clear. And I'm actually going to create a wet layer on the bottom, even before I put anything down. The Mod Podge will dry clear like a glaze, and it is going to start to get quite wet and sticky. So here we go. We're going to spread it out like this, and I'm going to just think about what I want my first piece to be. So I'm going to start out with a nice big petal, and already I see it kind of goes across the page, and that's fine. Okay, I'm going to add some Mod on top of that just to keep that sticky. That. You can see it's getting covered with that thick white paste, but it will all dry clear. Be careful when you are spreading the Mod across, just because it could lift up part of your tissue paper. Now I'm going to take another petal, and I'm just going to layer it on top. Again, adding another layer. You can already begin to see those neat layers being created. With tissue paper, it's a beautiful medium to use for this type of project because it's thin and transparent, which means the light goes through. And so you're going to get all sorts of surprises. Okay, so as you can see here, I've used those different sizes of petals and I've just applied them in a really somewhat random order. I am thinking about what's called composition, which is how I want to organize the pieces on the page and how I want to put them together. And I'm also thinking a little bit about color. So I've decided to spread out my green petals, my blue petals, my polka dots to create somewhat of a pattern. And I'm making sure to keep that Mod underneath and over top. For a couple of the pieces, you can see they've got a little bit smushed, maybe even torn in a corner. I got very enthusiastic and I was moving my brush pretty quick. So one thing to just keep in mind is if you move your brush quickly across the Mod, it may tear your paper, and then you can see what happens. It will be difficult to lift up the tissue once it's really sticky and glued down. So I'm just gonna add a few more pieces. Of course, I can cut more shapes out. You can feel free to cut more shapes as you create your design. Okay, so at this point, I've put down all the tissue paper that I'm going to use in my design. And I'm so tempted to do all of the corners, but I'm gonna leave it the way it is. This has been such a fun project and I have lots of tissue paper left over, and you probably do as well. So feel free to experiment and explore with different design options. You can really do this project on any hard surface, so a canvas, a piece of wood, you could even try cardboard, thick cardboard. So the last step is just to make sure that you're using that Mod and you're actually creating a glaze over the entire canvas, even where there may not be any tissue, so that there is a uniform, shiny effect once your Mod dries.